So I told you guys in the introduction, I'm really excited to have these two here today because they own a publishing company, but they do so much more in the way of platform building with Mediacasters. So welcome, Corina and Julie. It's great to have you.
Oh, it's great to be here. Thank you.
Amazing to be with Juliet in person.
I know. Yeah, I get articles from these guys from the magazine all the time, but we never really do anything but email. So it is exciting to see their beautiful faces on camera. So we're going to talk about a little bit about podcasting, video casting, repurposing content. Corina, do you want to hold up that book? And also, we're going to tell you where to find their book at the end, because these guys wrote an audiocasters book, which really great. If you're not podcasting, listen to why you should be, because it's easy. I find it really fun. Do you guys find it fun?
Super. Yeah. Addicting.
Yeah, it is addicting. So how did you guys get into podcasting? What brought you to, the podcasting world and what you're doing?
Well, it was kind of a dare for me, but then Corina and I met on a social audio app called Clubhouse, and we found out that we had so much in common, and we just were brainstorming and we're like, let's just do it. So we started doing it, and then we took it to another level, and then we took it to another level, and it just kept snowballing from there. So it just really has been a passion and something I think both of us are obsessed with.
Yeah. And isn't it sort of amazing? I actually had a podcast called Ask Juliet back in 2015. And you guys, this is why you need people like Julie and Corina. I did it on my own. It was horrendous. I mean, the concept.
We want to hear it. Wait, we're going to look for it. Ask Juliet.
I don't even know if it's still on there, but my bright idea was that I thought I would bring authors on to promote their book. And I learned so much about how much authors don't build their platforms, their media kits, their presence is awful. I mean, and I had to edit myself, which I'm horrible at. I had to do all the graphics, which I'm horrible at. So talk about all that and why they should work with people like you who really know how to get this done correctly.
Well, I'd like to start by answering the question you first asked that Julie just answered for me. When it came to launching Care More Be Better, for me, it was like something I felt compelled to do. And I think sometimes people have that. They feel like, I just have to do this and I'm not sure why, so I'm going to figure it out. And for me, it started with someone finally just lighting a fire under my tush and saying, I'm going to gift you the intro and the outro, which I didn't even know what that was, right? So gift these to you so your podcast sounds professional. But then I floundered in the beginning. And this is why I want to make sure we talk about this, because this is why we started the Mediacasters, our founding principle of it in the very beginning anyway, because it's so easy to feel like you're completely alone. You have no idea how you're supposed to approach this. You don't know what an RSS feed is. You're not sure how to get it out there, how to promote it, how to find your guests, how to do any of it. And you're just kind of floundering by yourself. So that's not necessary. We don't need to go it alone. And that's where the community aspect comes in, because we can learn from each other. We don't have to sit there and pay out the nose to specialists who may or may not guide us in the right direction for us, because every podcaster's journey can be a little bit different. And so that's the root of it for me anyway.
It's a lot like being an author, the isolating experience of being an author.
Yeah, it is. But the wonderful thing about podcasting too is if you're building your platform and you're going along and you're exposing yourself and building your audience, that author piece isn't a go it alone, because you've already gotten feedback on what you're doing. You're already building relationships, which, relationships are, believe it or not, what sell books, as well as, products and services too. So how do you go about with podcasting not feeling alone?
You meet Corina. But, seriously, it is about joining a community, because there is something called pod fade, which is a real thing. A lot of podcasters give up after 7 to 10 episodes because they're not seeing the return on their investment. And this is normal. You shouldn't be seeing a huge return on your investment from day one.
That is so true. So talk a little bit about that return on investment, because I was telling Corina a little bit before we jumped on, I don't have well, I didn't put it to her in this way. I don't have a one-to-one relationship with X amount of dollars goes out for that podcast and X amount of dollars comes in. It is really more about the content for me and that relationship building through the content. Do you guys have that experience, or do you get more of a one-to-one relationship with the ROI?
Well, I don't see ROI like everybody else does. I see podcasting as a marketing arm for your book. And it just gives you more visibility. So it's hard to really quantify, I think, in my mind.
I agree with Julie completely. And it's like most marketing efforts that are kind of broadcast. You don't necessarily always know how someone found out about you, but putting that message out there into the world in a variety of platforms enables you to reach more people and ultimately to reach them where they live, work, and play. If they love listening to podcasts, they're going to find you there. If they love being on social media or social audio, they have the opportunity to find you there. And if you are able to multi-purpose your podcast in such a way that you're leveraging it on each of these platforms and even with video on YouTube, then you're many different places at once, starting from that first effort. And so it enables you to kind of amplify this message in a longer format, but also short formats, because you can take snips and do fun things on TikTok or social media in general, and ultimately position yourself as an authority in a way in which your audience wants to reach you.
Very, very true. So talk a little bit about, we talked about podcasting versus video casting, because I think most people associate TikTok with more of the video casting. So talk about that a little bit.
And I'm not a TikToker, so maybe Corina is one of the most famous TikTokers I know.
That is still not true. I might have like 60 followers. I literally just started.
Jealous.
But it's something, However, at the same time, if I take one minute snip from a interview that I've done that is also on YouTube and I repurpose it on TikTok and it gets 250 views, that's 250 people I might not have otherwise reached because they're spending that time on TikTok and they may not be on YouTube, right? So it's all in how you put that out there. One of the things that I've seen that's very creative on the part of one of my friends who writes fiction works is that she is giving a real view behind the scenes of what it's like to be in her shoes as an author. She's choosing to become more transparent about some of her personal motivations and the things that she's doing and the reason she's doing them. So she's engaging with an already engaged audience in a new way and developing an even more authentic connection to them. And so she's doing that, and then even picking up her book and reading a little bit or reading some of the foreword and showing it on screen and having this kind of real connection with them. So TikTok can be as simple as that. It doesn't have to be highly produced. In fact, sometimes the less produced they are, they'll do well. It all depends on the content. And then if you're looking at something like YouTube, you can literally simulcast your podcast recording and make it videocast as well as a podcast on Facebook, on LinkedIn, on YouTube, and even do things like Instagram Live if you really want to get tech savvy and, have your phone here at the same time that you're doing this and be kind of multifaceted, or even doing that at the same time that you're running a room on Clubhouse or doing it on Wisdom app to kind of multiply your singular effort across all of these platforms. And of course, I would never advise someone try to do that all at once in the very beginning, but as you get a little bit more comfortable with one, you can say, okay, well, how could I do this so I also have it broadcast on Clubhouse at the same time? And maybe I'll have a co-host who helps me manage the audience. And that just becomes kind of a more authentic connection with my community. And maybe you only do that when you broadcast live, but it enables you, again, to create content that's in a multitude of spots where you are putting your voice out there. And then you can always turn that into a podcast after the fact.
Yeah, that is so true. We did that with our monthly trainings on LinkedIn Live. We turn it into a podcast later, even though it is restreaming. And I do want to caution exactly what Corina just said. If you're not super tech savvy, get yourself a co-host, because something's always going wrong with Restream. We learned we had to run it through Zoom to get it to work correctly and get people on at the same time. So yeah, you will be so frustrated if you don't tiptoe into all this step by step.
And the easiest thing is record with Zoom because it tends to be the most user friendly. And you can even use Zoom to broadcast onto some of these platforms as well. You get the video, you get the audio. You only have to use the audio if you want, but then you have the video if you later want to fall back on it. And if you later want to edit it into something different to put out there on YouTube or these other platforms.
Yeah, absolutely. And we actually take ours and put it over on Rumble too, because there's a little bit different audience over on Rumble.
What's Rumble?
I don't know Rumble.
I don't either.
I'm going to take notes. What's Rumble?
Rumble is like YouTube, only it's a little bit more conservative, probably a little bit older audience, which fits in with our demographic because we have a little bit older crowd. So
don't listen to you authors. You're very young and vivacious.
There you go.
Yeah, I'll have to figure out Rumble now. She's giving me homework.
We've kind of gotten into, we can use different, use this on different platforms, but what about repurposing it? Because that's where I hear from authors all the time. I don't have time to do content. And when you
that's the silliest thing I've ever heard, Juliet.
Isn't it?
They've created content by writing your book. If you're an author, you have created content. And I repurpose my books, I repurpose my podcasts, I interchange them, my blogs, I take snippets out. It doesn't have to be complicated. You don't have to do it like Corina and I and be everywhere all the time, because who's going to buy your book? I find the most powerful way to sell your book is to speak in front of audiences. You are wanting to gain that know, like, and trust. This is just an exercise, maybe in vanity metrics, I'm not sure, but you have to have an online presence, right? So being a little bit of everywhere, yes. So don't get overwhelmed and take it over, Corina.
I think the overwhelm is real for everyone. I do have a lot of content, but I even find it a struggle to remember to take care of all the posting each week because I'm running so many different platforms, right? Mm-hmm. And so I think there can be value at a certain point in time, and I'm looking at this pretty closely right now, of collaborating with someone to take care of some of the nuts and bolts so that you can focus on just creating the content. Yeah. Because, sitting there and thinking through, okay, now I've created all this content. Oh, I have to create the post. Oh, I need to make sure that my text is SEO rich so it gets more impact. What hashtags are trending? I mean, I don't have to personally do all of these things. And yet I take them on to do myself, even though I would be more efficient and I'd be able to use my time better. And I would also be able to spend more time on revenue generating things if I would just let go of it a little bit. Mm-hmm. So, I have partnered over the course of the last about a year with Placeit to do the creation for assets for my first podcast, Care More, Be Better. They do an excellent job. I end up with videograms, audiograms, quote cards, all of these things that I could actually go out there and post. And I usually post about a third of them.
Wow.
And then I move on to the next one because I'm like, every week I'm just like, oh, I only posted a third of them because I'll come back to it later, but then I forget to come back to it later. And so I really just need someone to help me with some of that admin stuff, and it's time. And I think giving ourselves permission to say, okay, you know what, I need a little support. Here's how. This is the benefit it's going to have. Then I can focus more on pitching myself to the right people to get on that stage or to write that book and be doing less of the busy work. I can bring more revenue in. It's always a really hard decision to make, but so many people now that are out there doing this type of work, they hire a VA and they might be paying $10 or less an hour for 20 hours a week and find that their whole world has changed. So that's the step that I think Julie and I are preparing to take as we continue our growth trajectory, just so that we can have our minds free to explore.
We need to free these minds. And this is curious, Corina, just expounding on all the things we feel we need to do. What do you see, Juliet, is if you could pick one thing, what is the most important thing for an author to do in terms of content? One platform or one thing besides speaking. I think the content creation and then thoroughly understanding so you don't get overwhelmed where your audience is at and focusing on that. We actually, and I've told my audience this before, we had an author back in, I want to say 2017, who insisted that everything be on Facebook, but she was solo to CEO.
her people were over on LinkedIn, and we could not get her to let go of Facebook. She knew how to use it, connect with the LinkedIn expert, and get in front of it. And the whole thing failed. And so understanding where your audience is at and creating good content for them, I think is essential. Because if I'm in the wrong place talking to the wrong people, I'm never going to get that visibility I'm looking for.
I agree. And I would say one more thing. Certain platforms, like a social media management platform, will enable you to post the same content in multiple spots all at once. Mm-hmm. So we use a tool like that here. There are dozens out there. Find one that works right for you, that covers the platforms that you care about. And then you will ultimately have an easier time of it. Even that being said, I just shared that I'm bad. And I'm working to get better at actually posting more consistently on my more personal related stuff.
What platform do you guys use? I use Social Bee.
Loomly.
Loomly? I just was looking at that this morning for a presentation I'm giving. So interesting.
Yeah, I like it.
There's a lot.
We have a subscription that has up to 20 for a relatively reasonable rate, considering it covers that many different platforms. Or, we might have 3 different profiles on Facebook and 3 different on another. I have one on
We can't even keep track anymore. What? Where are we?
Yeah.
Yeah,
it organizes. It's so easy. And it's so great. You can even post on your Google business. That's another thing, authors, you need to make friends with Google. You need to do the dance with Google. More important, and LinkedIn is really a powerful tool in getting your name out there. Juliet's laughing at me, but you do, and you need a Google business. A lot of authors, especially the nonfiction authors, don't know you need a Google business.
Yeah, you do. Get up and I wasn't laughing at you. I was laughing because I do everything in my personal life to avoid Google. I use DuckDuckGo and all those things so the ads can't track me. So.
Oh, really? That's so funny.
My husband has an ad blocker on our house, so none of our traffic is actually really traced. But that's the reality.
I tried. I have a VPN, but I don't use it a lot on my phone because it blocks it blocks a whole bunch of stuff I use regularly. But I do use it to search so that my
search. You do, and that's why you need to be on Google, because Juliet doesn't use Google, avoids Google at all costs. But then you search what restaurant should we go out to dinner tonight, or who's an expert on marketing books?
There you go.
I think it's
Juliet. Let's think about YouTube. YouTube is owned by Google. I mean, I have some podcast episodes that have far more views on YouTube than they have listens. Yeah. And so, sometimes just putting it out there, writing the show notes, you already put the show notes together, you now repurpose that on YouTube so that you become searchable there. It's really a search engine, and people find content that way. So we just need to be cognizant of that. And I have to be agnostic. Do I love Google? No. Do I love Facebook? Most definitely no.
You don't like Facebook?
I hate Meta.
Oh, so, I hate. I got off 2 years ago. I got off Facebook.
You're off of Facebook? Facebook is great for authors who want to have closed groups and they don't want to pay anything.
Yeah, that's really
where
nice.
I see the power.
Yeah.
But what's number 3? So we have Google, we have YouTube. What's number 3? Who knows?
Pinterest.
I know. Yeah, Corina knows because I talk
Sorry.
about it. I'm obsessed. Pinterest.
Oh,
Pinterest
I love you guys.
I use that with my authors.
Every recipe and did every workout that I pin on Pinterest, I would be
and decorate your house like that.
Yes, I would be a 400-pound fitness model.
No, you'd be 120 pounds. You'd be shredded, right?
I'd be
eating
shredded,
carbonara.
And there's all those recipes that I pin.
Oh, okay. So yeah,
you cannot dismiss Pinterest though, because especially for authors, whatever your topic is, it is where people go to discover. They are in that buying phase, but you need to know how to use Pinterest and make sure that your pin kind of sparks the right audience to go straight to your website, because it's so easy. I get so much website traffic by using Pinterest. And I always think you have to put a little bit of money into everything you do. Mm-hmm. So Pinterest, YouTube, whatever, just a pinch, not a lot, but it does help a lot with traffic and gaining visibility.
So how is the search capability when you run ads on Pinterest, when you put a little bit of money into it? Because that's one thing I do not like about LinkedIn, where my audience is the search capabilities, the ad capabilities are not very good.
I've never done an ad on LinkedIn, so I can't speak to that. But Pinterest, you can do an ad for as little as $1 or $2 a day for 5 days. And I feel like they almost hijack you. You have to pay money to really get it into the algorithm of Pinterest. But I just checked today, 10,000 views on one pin. And I think I did $2 a day for 10 days. And I'd like to test things out. It's like throwing spaghetti at the wall to see who's responding, who's pinning it, and who is clicking on your website. When someone pins your pin, that means that it goes on their board and then all of their followers see it. And if someone pins it, so it can be really exponential in terms of pinning. And I know this probably doesn't make sense if you don't know Pinterest.
And I've also found on Pinterest specifically that doing posts as idea pins gets you more traction. And so this is just an organic way to do it. Like you can basically create the same content and do it as a pin versus an idea pin. And then in an idea pin, you can actually put more detail in the description and the notes card than you could otherwise do. So I've found that to be successful to help get my content organically in front of people. And again, I haven't put a dime into my personal stuff. Now on the professional side, we've did, for some of my work in the nutrition industry, I spent about $7,000 over the course of a few months. That's a lot more than your authors would probably ever consider.
I want to hang out with you.
It's part of the launch, right? And so it's part of the launch strategy to do that. So we got a ton of traffic from it, but it didn't really result in sales. And what's different about Pinterest in this case, was that I'm in that brand awareness phase. So I don't expect a ton of purchase power on that very beginning because it's so new. Like we just launched in May, right? However, what happened when I shut off the advertising? What happens when I shut off advertising on Meta is all of it disappears.
Wait, is this on just Meta or Pinterest?
I'm comparing to Pinterest for a second. So on Meta, Facebook, Instagram, the moment I stop doing any sort of advertising, all of my traffic disappears. I stopped advertising on Pinterest and I'm still seeing traffic. I'm still seeing repins. I'm still seeing energy behind people finding my page and following my page. And so this is one of the major differences, I think, between how Meta runs things and how Pinterest runs things. And I didn't know this before really this month when I dug into the analytics. I'm like, well, this is surprising. I haven't advertised with them for 6 weeks. Why am I still seeing this kind of traffic? Oh, they are just better organically.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree.
Wow. You guys need to write a book about that.
Oh my gosh, that sounds like a lot of work, Juliet.
Yeah,
but I think we probably could think of something, maybe a booklet.
Yeah,
so another thing.
People forget about Pinterest. People really do.
They do. But Julie, what was that tool that we found that helps us like make all these images of the book, make it look really pretty? Placeit.
Mm-hmm.
So this
do you know Placeit? Do you use that, Juliet?
I don't use it. I have designers that do it for us, but
it was.
What does Placeit do?
Places your book in mock-ups to make them look like professionally.
It looks like somebody's reading the book on a beach or in a hammock or doing whatever. And so even in fact, if you go to the mediacasters.com, you'll see an image that has this book on the front cover with a girl holding it up like this. And it looks real. And I mean, granted, we didn't pay to have this professionally shot.
Yeah. So it's worth the money, guys. Placeit.com.
It enables us to create all sorts of stuff. Like even if you want to create swag, if you have a t-shirt and you decide you want to make it look like it's on a real person in all these different situations, it just looks real. And so they've done a really good job.
Oh, very cool. So look, you guys got some good tools here today.
We got lots.
So where can we find your book at?
How about Amazon?
Who's the granddaddy of everything books, right?
Yeah. Who rules the world and has taken over the publishing industry? Amazon.
No, they haven't taken over.
They're trying to, though.
They're trying to. That is something we have to talk to our clients about constantly. Is that Amazon takedown and some of the games they play with the Ingrams of the world to get more visibility and. There's really some unfair competition going on out there with them. So I would love to see some solid rules in the publishing world that evened it out for authors when it comes to Amazon. But that's for another podcast.
It's opened the floodgate to the lowest hanging fruit. Really, I mean, anyone, you don't even need an editor. You can just jump on KDP, and boom, you have a book. Someone I talked to the other day, they're like, I have 400 books. I'm like, oh, you do? bing, the red light went off in my head. I'm like, probably just uploads a new book every other week,
Yeah.
He writes a booklet.
Yeah. And are they good books? And
No, they're not edited, I'm sure.
I do have a friend who started out and used Amazon very effectively. I wrote my first fiction novel in 2009, and hers came out at the same time, but she just became a New York Times bestseller.
Oh, wow.
In the last year or so. But she's built a book empire of really, really good books. And she's got some great strategies that she works with her list to make sure she makes the USA Today and Wall Street Journal bestseller lists every time. It took her years to build, though. It's 2022. And it took her at least 6 years to get on the USA Today, Wall Street Journal. So
Wow.
It's a while. So where can we find you guys? We know the book's over on Amazon. Hold it up again, Corina, if you would, please. It's called Mediacasters, The Ultimate Guide to Podcasting. And where
Audiocasters?
Audiocasters.
It's Audiocasters.
Oh, Audiocasters.
Yeah.
Why did I say Mediacaster?
Because we are the Mediacasters.
They're just the casters. No,
we cast a lot of stuff.
Watch
we don't
out.
cast stones. We don't cast
And where
stones.
can we find you besides in our magazine every month?
Well, you can find us on the mediacasters.com. We have a community that is run by the Mighty Networks. It's a vibrant community of creatives, authors, entrepreneurs at the mediacasters.mn.co. It's totally free, and it will remain free till the day I take my last breath. So, just Google the Mediacasters. We have a podcast called the Mediacasters.
And
we
we're
like to
on all
kick it.
social channels at
you can find us.
Mediacasters.
Yeah.
So all the social, even Pinterest, you guys, even Pinterest.
We're everywhere except for Rumbler. We're not on Rumbler.
It's Rumble.
Rumble. We're not
There
on
you go.
Rumble.
Rumble,
definitely not on Rumbler.
Rumble.com, and I think it's attached to locals.com now. I have a locals account, but I don't jump on it very much. In fact, I don't even get on Rumble. My assistant uploads.
Well, Karina and I are going to be like Googling Rumble and be like, do we need to get on Rumble? Is Rumble the
I
next
got
big
some
thing?
pretty good traction over there. So it just, I don't pay a whole lot of attention. My assistant puts it up, and I
Just keep writing. Just keep writing.
I don't actually write that much, but you know what? It's interesting is what you guys were talking about earlier with your social media. I actually do put my calendar together, and then I hand it off to an assistant that posts everything into Social Bee. So we're all at different stages. Thank you, ladies, for being on. I really appreciate
Thank you, Juliet.
taking the time to do this. We've been trying to put this together for months, you guys. So it's great to get
happy.
these together.